Turmentic here, and we got a bombshell dropped on us today from Pokefodder and Xpectogo. They had a meeting with some of the WB reps at WUFest, and they told us today that oddities spawn for a reason. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, all that's my 2-year-old. All okay, oddity. So, what do I mean by they dictate oddity spawns? Well, oddities are based off of the lore in the canon of Harry Potter. Now, you might be asking yourself, what exactly is lore? Well, more, what is canon? Well, the canon is the 7 books, the 7 original books, and then there were 3 additional books that Pokefodder and Xpectogo were talking about. Fantastic Beasts is one of them, Quidditch Through the Ages, and they could not remember the 3rd book. They did say, though, that no to Tales of Beetle the Bard, and no to Cursed Child as well. Also wanted to let you know that Pottermore is canon as well, because they technically count anything that J.K. Rowling herself has actually written. Also, the movies, which I know that's going to cause some controversy, but leave it in the comments, so I'm not going to get into that. But what I'm getting at, though, is that oddity spawns are on purpose. They aren't random, things like that. So what that means is that what we need to figure out exactly what causes them. Now, there's 3 different factors that have been brought up onto what causes an oddity to spawn: location, time of day, and weather. Remember, they've had weather in the game since we started, but no one's really paid attention to it that much because we could never really understand if it was causing things to spawn and not spawn, things like that, except for full moons. It's completely different. So, saying that, now let me break those 3 down. Again, weather, location, and time of day. We've known time of day pretty much since, I want to say, the first week of the game being out or so. So that's not really that big and surprising. Location, though, is. And it makes sense, because when I was at WUFest, I was talking to Pokefodder, and he was saying that he'd never seen a horned serpent before in Southern California. And I thought that was kind of strange, because I thought that, the oddities just spawned. There was a random chance for them to be there and things like that. But he said he'd never seen one. And if you were following Wizarding News, when they did their doxy hunt early in the morning at WUFest, it turned out to be more of a leprechaun hunt. And that actually got me thinking, when I first found a leprechaun, it was cloudy and raining. And I had never seen one before, and I actually ended up finding like 12 that day. And that's what the weather was that morning in Indianapolis, that Saturday morning. And so weather always kind of made I've had an idea that weather played an idea to it, but never anything that was super, super, super concrete. The big part of the bombshell, though, today was them talking about canon and how the canon actually plays such a big role with those oddity spawns. Now, I remember I went over the list of exactly what is canon in the game, and it's interesting because, like, for example, horned serpents, okay? Southern California, near where Pokefodder lives, I imagine there isn't a lot of water, streams, rivers, lakes, things like that. I live over on the Outer Banks, though, where we're surrounded by water all the time. And I started thinking about where I'd actually seen horned serpents spawn. And it's always on a particular area that's like, we have this area, a big body of water called the Albemarle Sound. And it's always along the stretch of road and walkways near that water. I've never seen one just randomly in the middle of the island. It's always been off to one of the sides, on either the ocean side or the sound side. And it really, really made me start thinking. And every single oddity in the game also has has a reference somewhere in canon to what they do, where they live, how they think. And it's interesting because, like, we never for some reason took that into account. Now, I do want to say, because James at Xpectogo was extremely adamant about this when I was talking to him on Twitter earlier today, that it is not set up like Pokemon Go, where Pokemon Go has the weather grid pattern. and you go from one grid to another and the weather changes like this, and how some things can spawn in one grid but not in the other grid. That's not how they were very adamant about how that is not how Wizards Unite is set up. There are biomes, I want to say, but the biomes would actually be a much larger area. Think of it more like, instead of it being broken up, it's all one world. And if you're close to water, you might get these certain spawns. If you're close to the mountains, you might get these certain spawns. All of the dragons that they just released are native to their particular spots. Like the Peruvian Viper Tooth, in lore, it's in Peru. The Chinese Fireball, in canon, it's in China. So it's interesting when you actually take that into account, that the canon is what drives these spawns and where they spawn. And the more that I thought about it, the more things started to click. Like, for example, I never see doxies at my house, ever. But a friend of mine who lives literally 6 miles away sees them every single morning. All she has to do is open up her game and they're there. And the only difference between where she lives and I live is that she's in a more wooded area. I mean, we both technically live near the water, so that one's checked. But she lives in a more wooded area than I do. I live more on a peninsula out in the middle of the Sound. So little things like that actually come into play, it seems. I live in an area where all of the different oddities spawn. So what I'm going to start doing is, anytime I see one of them, whether it's a big one or a leprechaun or whatever, I'm going to start writing down what time of day, what was near me, and what the weather was. And I'm encouraging everyone that's watching this to do the same thing. You can email me any sorts of results at turmentic@gmail.com. I'll leave the link down in the description. And I will really want to start trying to compile a list of exactly when things spawn, where they spawn, things like that, because we've been paying attention to it. And again, like I said, most of us thought that it was strictly just time of day dependent. And now that we know for a fact that weather comes into it, I really am interested to see exactly what the weather conditions are for certain oddities to actually spawn. And remember what they said, no oddity spawns by accident. Every oddity spawns on purpose with a certain set of parameters that makes that spawn happen. So we need to really dial down and figure out exactly what is causing these spawns to happen at particular times, to particular weather, things of that nature. Now, this brings me to a theory that I've had for probably about a good month and a half. And I talked to Xpectogo a little bit about this at WUFest. And in Wizards Unite, there are no nests, if you will, like there are in Pokemon Go. Certain places spawn a certain number of things in Pokemon Go for about a 2-week period, and then the nest rotates to something else. In Wizards Unite, we have the flagpoles, and the flagpoles are an area where it's concentrated for like dark arts or 9 3/4, things of that nature. So we don't really have nests, if you will, like they do in Pokemon Go. But right around the change of the month after the game had actually been out, from July into August, I started noticing that certain things that were spawning before weren't spawning in August. I'll use 9 3/4, for example. In July, I saw a ton of Slytherin and Hufflepuffs. As soon as we switched over from July into August, though, those actually turned into Gryffindors and Ravenclaws. Another example would actually be Legends of Hogwarts. That first month, I saw tons of Ginnies. Going into August, I saw none. Now, it's interesting if you actually take what we just learned about oddities and apply it across the board, though, to every other family in the registry. So I don't know if weather comes into play with those. I don't really think time of day comes into play. but I do feel that the foundables themselves rotate. It might be every month. I'm not sure, but even going from WUFest to here, um, after before I left, like I said, before I left in August to go to WUFest, no Jennies. When I came back, I found three so far. And you're like, oh, well, maybe that's just happenstance. No, even going into Dark Arts, the first month, I got everything that I needed to prestige that first page of Dark Arts except for the Vanishing Cabinets. And guess what? Come August, I found the Vanishing Cabinets. And again, it's just a theory that I have, but I do think that the foundables that are actually around us rotate about maybe once a month or so. It's not a rotation of family, so don't think it's going to go from 9 3/4 to Dark Arts or from Legends of Hogwarts to Magizoology. It's going to stay Magizoology, or it's going to stay 9 3/4. But the thing that actually spawns is going to rotate itself. And I feel like I'm on to something, honestly. And I waited until September to actually say anything about this because I wanted to make sure that with another month passing, they changed again. And then on top of it, with the information that we just got today about the oddity spawns, I really feel like I'm onto something. So it's gonna take probably at least another 2 months before I can actually make sure, oh, this is exactly what it is. But let me know down in the comments if you've experienced this at all, of a rotation change, if you will, of the natural foundables around you. And now, to take it even one step further, I think what they were talking about also applies to ingredients. Now, using toadstools, for example, there are tons of people across the world who've never seen a wild toadstool. I've seen a good amount of wild toadstools, but I started thinking about it, and the only times that I ever saw wild toadstool was after it rained, or while it was raining during the day, which, if you think about it, makes sense because it's a mushroom. Mushrooms grow with rain. So I found that I find like bitterroot at my house all the time, but I've never seen Abraxian hair. So again, I think location has something to do with ingredients as well. So like I said, leave a comment down in the comment section or send me an email, turmentic@gmail.com, and let me know if you found any sort of coincidences or chains of events that actually have been leading up to, oh, well, I've been finding this at this time with this type of weather. Whether it's ingredients, it's oddities, or it's natural foundables, going back to what I was saying about my theory about how they change each month. Because the more information we have, the more likely we'll be able to actually start proving these things. That will make it easier for people to be able to get these things that they need, and also to just have more fun in the game because there won't be any guesswork involved. But my name is Turmentic. Huge shout out to Pokefodder and both James and Sue at Xpectogo. Make sure to go and check out their videos, Xpectogo and Pokefodder. Like I said, they're the ones that heard this directly from the WB rep. So they're the ones that actually have all of the info, complete breakdowns. Both videos are spot on. Like I said, you definitely want to go check them out. This is all just really exciting too, because as soon as we think we have something figured out, it seems like Niantic and WB just throw us a curveball and it's like, nope, you have an idea, but you don't have the full picture. So we got to work together, all of us, whether you're a YouTuber, you're just a casual gamer, you're a hardcore Harry Potter fan. We need to all work together in order to figure out exactly all of the information that we have about these oddities so we can get an accurate way of being able to predict where and when they will show up. But my name is Turmentic. Thanks for checking out the video. Give it a like if you found it helpful. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for more useful tips and tricks. And as always, I will catch you next time.